city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
Welcome to
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. You are here with Adrian Hernandez of MileHighHockey.com. I am joined by Jackie, Evan, and Ezra. We are here to talk Colorado Avalanche hockey fresh off of an Avalanche comeback victory over the Calgary Flames. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're tuning in right now, please like, subscribe, and share with your fellow Avalanche fans and hockey fans all around. You'll be doing us a huge solid. We have lots and lots to talk about today, you three. Some Mikko ranting comments in the post game yesterday. We're going to cover a little bit of what is to be ahead with the Buffalo Sabres and Erik Johnson coming back to Ball Arena and Town. And we're going to preview a couple of the other games coming up this week that we won't have a chance to get to otherwise. And of course, as usual, we will rehash our bold predictions and see who was smart and who was dumb. And usually we're all kind of dumb, but that's why they call them bold predictions, baby. Let's get right into it with the Mile High Hockey Lab. As I previously mentioned, I was coming off a pretty big victory. I was kind of getting ready to write an article that would have said something to the effect of what the hell is going on in Colorado had the Avalanche not come back to win that game. But before we go there, let's talk about the Condor and his return to Colorado Avalanche territory, Ball Arena, tomorrow night. And Evan, I'm going to send this one your way. Tell me, what's your favorite Erik Johnson memory in a Colorado Avalanche sweater, and elaborate as to why?
Man, yeah, tomorrow night is going to be an emotional night at Ball Arena. I can already kind of hear it, whether I'm in the building or not. Right? That's yet to be decided yet. I'm figuring out if I want to go or not. But anyway, besides that, to actually answer the question, the easy answer is winning the Stanley Cup. So I'm not actually going to take that. I'm actually going to take his overtime winner against the Winnipeg Jets in, I believe it was 2018 or 2019, one of the two. It was like the last game of the regular season when they clinched a playoff spot. Then he was in on a breakaway, went over Hellebuck, and had like this huge celebration, hands up in the air. And I think still to this day that is used in Avalanche promotional videos. Oh yeah. So that was a pretty big moment. And while it wasn't the biggest moment and the easiest moment for this answer, it's a good one that's going to be imprinted in a lot of Avalanche fans' minds, I had to imagine.
Yeah, that's the one where he like came around the corner after scoring with his arms wide open with that look on his face, like even he was surprised that he was able to pull it off. And that's kind of my thing with EJ, is he was always the first to seem incredibly joyous. That includes when they won the Stanley Cup. And I for one am a big fan of Erik Johnson currently. And I kind of will always be. But Ezra, I want to send this one your way. We saw, and Evan, you mentioned this a little bit about the cup, but we saw EJ go straight, McKinnon go straight to EJ when they won the cup and the gloves were flying in the air. At the time, EJ was the longest tenured Colorado sports figure. In your mind, where does EJ rank among, we'll just keep it in the Avs realm, among the Avs greats? Oh, I think you're muted.
Oops.
That's all right.
It's kind of a tough question because you said, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you're good. No sweat. Let it roll.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll answer the question now. So it's kind of a good question to answer because he is, he was such a long-standing Av that I think he belongs pretty high up there. But then you think about like where he ranks in terms of that cup team, and it's, I don't know, 4 or 5, and then you think about the other cup teams, and they're all going to be ahead of him. So I'd have a hard time fitting him into the top 10, I think, but I want him there. I want to fit him into the top 10.
Well, and I'll send over the first question to you. What's kind of your favorite memory of Erik Johnson?
I think it's kind of in the 2016 season, he broke his leg, and the game when he came back finally after all that, you could just tell how much he mattered to everybody on the team, and how
Yeah.
big of a deal it was that EJ was back. Whether that team was good, it doesn't matter. But the fact that he was such a lift for the guys, I mean, it just goes to show what kind of player he is on and off the ice, and what kind of person he is off the ice, obviously. Because on the ice, he's not a good person; he's a mean guy. But no, I mean, it shows you it shows you how valuable is he, how lovable he is, and the thing that I'll never forget about EJ is that broken tooth smile. I love that. You get that every game. So, yeah, that's my big memory. But the smile is the big thing.
It's funny that you mentioned the smile, because as I was doing, I'm working on an article about Erik Johnson ahead of tomorrow's game. And as I was sifting through the pictures, I just put in the search bar, Colorado Avalanche, Erik Johnson smile. And the ones that came up were all toothless. And the first one, which is the one I went with, you'll see tomorrow, is him on the podium with a bottle of champagne in his left hand. And he's grinning from ear to ear. And I swear he lost another tooth that day. It feels like he has one less in his frame right there. But Jackie, what is your favorite Erik Johnson memory before I tell you mine? And I want to see how you feel he's fitting into Buffalo. He's already played 400 minutes over there in 28 games. Do you think the Avs might think twice in hindsight about letting him slip?
I would say no. A lot of it has to do with the contract. If he could have been back for what Jack Johnson signed for, that's a fair debate. In some ways, they kind of needed to move on just because, I mean, he would be good in the room right now, and maybe some of their struggles could be attributed to that, kind of missing a personality like him. But I feel like on ice, he kind of became a little bit of a crutch because you can't really scratch him. Like, it would have started to become difficult, right? Like his play slipping, but how much respect do you have to give him, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it was time to move on. I am happy that he's playing well. Not that I see a lot of Buffalo games. They're not on national TV much.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's been solid for them, and that's what they need. And I don't know. I think it kind of worked out for both parties. That if I could run back the off season, keeping Erik Johnson probably wouldn't be on my wish list. But it is bittersweet for sure to have him gone. So my memories, of course, the Stanley Cup and Landy passing it on to him was really cool. But I mean, those are going to be everybody's favorite memories. And also kind of what Evan touched on, the condoring. I think it was fun that he earned that nickname and that he embraced it. Like he'd even tweet with like the little condor emoji. And so that was fun. But I guess I'll remember like the relationships he had. I liked kind of the little bond he had with Sam Girard. They were kind of a little bit of the odd couple, but they sat next to each other in the locker room, and it was always fun to see like whenever we got glimpses of their relationship. So just stuff like that too, just kind of how much EJ meant to all of his teammates.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that to me, because I like I wrote in the script, McKinnon going to him straight after they won. The interview he had that we kind of touched on last week with in post game after Matt Duchene was traded, and how basically the message there was, I want to play with guys that want to play with me. It does come through pretty clear that a part of what Erik Johnson brings to the table doesn't just show up on the ice. It is in those relationships. And that's big time when it comes to getting the whole team to buy in. When you have a character like Erik Johnson, who is so easily liked and so easy to rally behind, that kind of starts to seep its way throughout the roster. And I think him and McKinnon were a very, very good balance. And I think Rantanen has a little bit of that balance too, in terms of like where McKinnon is very, very serious. I imagine Erik was a little bit little lighthearted in certain areas and kind of took the edge off in certain ways. So I think for me, it's a twofold memory. I love what he had to say about the Matt Duchene situation, but a weird one that will always stick out in Avalanche folk is his pass to Darren Helm against the St. Louis Blues in the second round. He's taking the puck up the ice. It feels just like he's going to take it in the zone, dump it in, and we're heading into overtime. But not so fast, Charlie. Sends it over, hits the boards, helm right off the board, slap shot into the net, and the Avalanche get the monkey off their back. So that's my memory, mostly because it just didn't feel like it was going to happen, and then it did. But I do want to touch on something, Ezra, you mentioned, like he's probably not top 10 because he's probably not top 5 in this Stanley Cup window of players. But does number 6 find its way into the rafters at Ball Arena? Evan, I'll send this one your way.
Ooh, it's a tough question. That's a real tough question. I don't have his stats in front of me, so I'd have to look at those maybe a little bit closer before I make a decision. I'm not sure because you obviously have the fan reminiscence and the fan love that comes with him and just who he was and spending a decade plus in Colorado. And I think that alone definitely could do that. I mean, we saw that with Ray Bork, and he was only an AB member for a year. So I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, so EJ is 52 games shy of 1,000, so that's pretty cool. He might get there this season if he stays healthy. He's 10 goals away from 100 on his career, also cool. He has 1 assist to get to 250. So he's in that time in his career where like he has all these benchmarks like right on the horizon. 339 points in his career. Let's see if we can find game-winning goals. 20 game-winning goals, which is, you ask me, that's very impressive for a guy who came into the league in 2007 and plays defense. So, I mean, I'm with you. I do think that he's one of those guys that's like potentially you can throw him up there, but now we're talking about the rafters getting kind of crowded, especially if you include the people above him in that Stanley Cup class. Ezra, you mentioned a little bit he's not top 5. Is this a short answer for you, Jack? Erik Johnson not going in the rafters at Ball Arena?
Yeah, I mean, you got that right. I think that's it. It could be that short, but I do want to elaborate because I think he is deserving of a lot of accolades, and he should be remembered as a great Avalanche career player. A great Avalanche player in his career. But it is just like it's kind of like the Hall of Fame versus Hall of Very Good argument that we hear a lot in hockey media. And he definitely, if it's a Rafters of Very Good, for sure, put him up there. But if it's like a true Hall of Fame Rafters, then unfortunately, I mean, when he was the Avs number 1 defender, the Avs were not very good. When he was the Avs number 3 through 6, very good. But you don't put your third best defender in the rafters very often. That's Adam puts up there. So
I was gonna say that's kind of where I get a little bit confused because unlike the Hall of Fame, it really is kind of up to the franchise who they throw up there, and the criterion for getting there is not very clear, or there's not a line drawn in the sand as you look at Adam Foote. But Adam Foote was kind of like the heart and soul of the team for a certain era. And I don't think that was necessarily true about Erik Johnson. I think the biggest thing about his time and the success of the Avalanche around his time there was the team itself. So I'm with you there. But as it usually goes, Jackie, I have a feeling Erik Johnson or Tyson Jost will score tomorrow, which is your pick.
Well, didn't we already get the Jost goals? So
yeah, we did.
I know I'm feeling more like Tage Thompson's definitely going to score. I don't know. I think the curse of the ex-Av. I don't know. To be honest, I'm not feeling either, but we'll see. But just to touch on the number retirement. If it were up to me, I'm not so much on like the Adam Foote train of like the reverence of him and everything. I think bringing him back was kind of a big mistake. But I think the line in the sand there is that he was captain. I think that's like the reason that everybody uses that it's appropriate. So if EJ had been captain at some point in this run, then I think you could definitely draw the parallels there. But I wish there was like a Ring of Fame. I think every franchise, especially one that's won several championships, I think they need to honor more players. And if you had a Ring of Fame some way to sort of honor certain players. Like I'd even put Paul Stastny in there because I think it's sort of similar, and maybe we don't look back on him just because he's been gone a while. But I mean, he was really important when he was here for all those years.
Agreed. I mean,
So
two really, really important goals in the history of the Avalanche
so
for Paul Stastny.
So yeah, like he's, and of course EJ because he won the cup and everything with them, and all that. But like I said, I see them sort of similar, and I wish there was sort of a way to honor them. But no, I think you've definitely got to keep the Raptors pretty sacred. You know, we're gonna have 3-4 numbers going up there for sure, and you do have to draw the line somewhere, and for me, it doesn't quite make it.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I don't want to get too far into this topic, although it might be a good one to get into later on in life, maybe in the off season. But who is going in the rafters? Obviously, McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, Lehkonen.
No. I'd say
Okay.
Landeskog for the captain
Landeskog.
reason.
Mm-hmm.
So those four probably.
Yeah,
those four.
Anyone outside of that, they probably need to win another cup.
Okay.
You know what? Screw it. Curtis McDermott, Hall of Fame, Rafters now.
All of it.
I mean,
well, he'd have to play the playoffs first.
Getting there, but
Nichushkin, Ezra, that's not especially. I think you're right, Jackie. It all depends on if they get another one. Like if they get another one, and then there's a few more guys I think get up there. Nichushkin is a good one, Ezra. I agree.
But what would he have to do? I don't know. He's definitely been very important to their success, no doubt. But
that's a good question because, what could he do that Paul Stastny didn't? In terms of game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup Final.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like in terms of the folklore of the Avalanche. I mean, Nas is a component to a really good team. Paul Stastny is like Paul Stastny.
If Kadri had re-signed here long term, I could see an argument for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
But he just didn't. I mean, I know I can see the argument for Nichushkin, but I just feel like he's gonna have to. He's gonna need some records or something, and he's just not gonna be quite there with the production. Like what in particular? You can't just say this guy was really instrumental to our forecheck, and therefore he's in the rafters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I hear you.
It's like
I mean. Yeah, I think for me, it's he could have been he should have been in the Conn Smythe conversation for the last cup, and I expect if they win again, he will need to be again. And if he pulls a Conn Smythe or something, then guaranteed. But if not, that'd be tough.
Yeah, well, we won't know if McKinnon's going into the rafters until 2031. So we're way ahead of schedule right now in terms of talking about this.
Hopefully he makes it to 2031.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and definitely because there's a no move clause for all of those 8 years in his contract. So hopefully he's like the LeBron James of hockey and just keeps rolling. But let's move on to our next topic, which is kind of a touchy one, maybe, if you think so. We'll see how you folks feel. But Mikko Rantanen had some comments and was pretty animated after the game. We saw the interview come from a few different sources, DNVR, Altitude themselves. But basically, Rantanen called out Lehkonen's dad post-game because Lehkonen had been quoted in an article recently saying that Rantanen wasn't quite putting in the time that he typically does in the summer, and that's the reason why he's struggling. Evan, I'll send this one your way to start. What are your thoughts initially on that?
Yeah, when I heard those comments last night when I was writing a recap, I was just like, huh? It kind of caught me off guard. And I of course then I went and looked at it and saw Evan Rowell had written about it already. DNVR, of course, The Athletic Peter Ball wrote about it this morning, and I was kind of stunned by that a little bit. And I think it's more so because Mikko Rantanen is still really freaking good. Sure, he hadn't scored in 10 games, but he still is producing over a point a game. It's not like he's sitting on the bench doing absolutely nothing, right? It's not like he's playing only 2 minutes a night. He's still out there producing, and while maybe he did fall below the levels that we expect him, or not expect it, but want him to be at, as Avs fans, I do think that the pushback by Arturi Lekkonen's dad, I think Ismo is his name, Ismo Lekkonen, and he's part of the media out there in Finland too. Is I don't know, it might have been one of those clickbaity things that he's trying to get the attention, you know.
Yeah. Well, and Mikko called it "quote unquote" lies, and I find that interesting because he was also asked after, and I know Peter Baugh kind of elaborated on this. You know, he said, "Me and Art are fine," which is what he calls Arturi Lekkonen. He said, "We're fine." It did have like a lighthearted tone to it from my standpoint. Like, obviously, he seems serious, but it kind of felt like, you know, like talking shit to your brother, not like he had any visceral comments. He just said that those are lies, and this is what you get for lying about me. I think Mikko's kind of fortunate in that he had a very good second half of the third period because it might not have felt like lies otherwise. But Ezra, what are your thoughts on those comments? And does this feel like anything the Avs should be like concerned about inside the room?
Concerned about inside the room? No, they should be concerned about Mikko needing this kind of motivation to get going. I mean, and look, I'm glad he's off the Schneid. Got back on the score sheet. I don't really think he's been playing that poorly through this stretch. The last few games, the week before was a little rough, but these last couple games, I felt like he had his game back. It just wasn't going. But I don't love hearing that it takes an interview in another country to get his juices flowing.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
And Arturi Lekkonen, I don't think they have to worry about that.
Does Rantanen only read articles in Finn? Because if he reads some of the ones that the people here in Colorado write, he'd have plenty of material to be pissed off about. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, he should be mad at me for my grades.
I mean, I'll send him direct messages every night if it gets him to score 4 points, if that's all it takes, and let's get it rolling. But Jackie, I'll have you touch on the Mikko comments, and then I want to see what you think of Alexander Gorgiev's performance, and if you're at all concerned with him.
As far as Mikko, well, he had a pretty good game, not on the score sheet, but like he was pretty, I guess you could say, motivated in the previous game as well.
Yeah.
I think he had at least 6 shots on goal or something, and just
3 or 4 hit the post. Yeah.
So it's kind of a coincidence to say like, oh, this comment came out and then he finally gave a crap. It's like, I don't know, a little bit of a coincidence there for me, but no, he was definitely angry. If you see those videos, he was not joking. And not being like a little bit sarcastic banter or whatever. Like, no, he was angry. I've never seen him that angry. Like, in a way, it's kind of refreshing that somebody's just finally honest, because we see so much in the hockey media, just all the cliches and everything. And I read the original Finnish article, because usually when something like this comes up, I hate hearing paraphrasing, right? I want to
translation, right?
See the source. So I found the article myself. Obviously, it's Google Translate. Not the greatest, but at least it was original article. And it was saying he was spending too much time in Helsinki and he was doing too many events. So it really was questioning his like work ethic and character. That's why he was so mad. It wasn't about like, you know, he hasn't scored or you're not playing well defensively or whatever. Like, that is pretty personal. And so to go to that far to question the guy's, like I said, work ethic and character, that's why he got so angry. So I think Mikko can separate the teammate and the dad, especially since the dad is a media personality in his own right. He wasn't giving quotes as Arturi's father. He was giving quotes as media person.
Ismo Lekkonen, right.
So
kind of what you're talking about, Evan. Yeah.
So I think that they can put it behind them, which that's the concern. You don't want to have any issues between him and Arturi, and I believe him when he says they're good friends. Like, I've seen somebody say like, oh, is he serious about that? No, we could tell from before that they had a pretty good relationship. So I think they'll be fine. I just question if there's a dad's trip. And Ismo Lekkonen is on the trip, then I might be like, is that going to be a little awkward? But until then, probably not. So hopefully it's just buried and, you know, Mikko had his say and hopefully he can continue scoring goals, because one bouncing off of the shaft of his stick isn't quite, beast mode yet, but we'll get there.
But those are the types of goals that do like seem to
Exactly.
set
For
a
sure.
goal scorer off onto like a absolute burner. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case here for Rantanen. And I will admit, like, there's definitely some fire in his comments, and he's definitely emotional and angry. I guess my rebuttal to that is I've definitely been for real angry at my brother plenty of times. And and I think like you're right in that he was probably truly offended, but I don't think that he is taking this like to the heart so much. I will say that like that the specifics of it, the whole Helsinki, not spending enough time, I think it does have a lot to do with the fact that he's Finnish. And there's a lot of pride among the Finnish players and how they sit within each other and in the league. Because even he mentioned we had a Finnish dad. He could have just said Ismo called me out and I didn't like it, and we would have known who we were talking about. But he said, a Finnish dad of an NHL player said this and that, and it wasn't true. But touching on a little bit of what I kind of sort of try to send your way, but I always do this.
Okay.
I
I
always send you 3 questions at once, Jackie. I'm sorry. But I was kind of felt like Alexander Georgiev has had a rough go of it as of late. And that I think it was the third goal in particular against the Calgary Flames, he just did not look like a confident goalkeeper. Are you concerned about Alexander Georgiev, Jackie?
Remind me real quick what the third one was.
That was the one where Coleman came in with the forehand and just kind of snapped one on, and it just sort of beat Georgiev underneath the arm, above the block, above the pad, in that place that you don't. And he kind of like tightened up, and he looked for it, but he was nowhere close to where it was. He kind of looked around afterwards, like, what the hell just happened?
It ticked off Makar's stick, but
it did. Yeah, it did kind of slightly, get tipped there. So that's the kind of goal you don't want to see get past him. But it is true that you could see on the replay it did change direction.
I didn't see that, so that's fair.
So maybe you would rather see at least some reaction because he knows the shot's coming. But so yeah, I'm kind of 50-50 on that one. But in general, it's tough because I don't think he's getting beat like obviously, or letting in like just horrible goals. It's more goals than he should be letting in, but they're all sort of defensible. So this is kind of the problem, is that it'd be easy to point and say, if it was one or the other, if it was like, oh no, the breakdowns are just awful and it's not him at all, or yeah, he's giving up bad goals and he needs to get better. It's just sort of like the culmination of all of it. And Bednar kind of said it last night, like, it wasn't that it was a bad performance, but at some point you need a save. And so that's sort of where we're at. Like, giving up 4 or 5 is like too much. But yeah, some of those breakdowns were awful. Some of the coverage was awful. What can you do? And so, like I said, so that's where I'm at. It's kind of tough to say. I mean, what would you really rather see Prosvetov start? Like, I think he's earned his starts, but would you want to turn the reins over to him? No, I think that's a little extreme.
Yeah. And that would do terrible things, I think, to Georgiev's confidence too.
Yeah.
If we decided to turn to a guy who wasn't even on the roster 2 months ago, you know what I mean? So I'm with you there. I didn't even see the replay where the puck got tipped on the Coleman goal by Makar's stick. And now that you mention it, that probably makes a little more sense as to where he was positionally and with his frame, because he was probably tightening up to avoid a rebound, and then the puck redirects around him, so to speak. But my major concern, because I wrote in the preview almost exactly what you said just now, but in different words, which is that it's been a combination of two things. I was big on Georgiev coming into the season, thinking he could be a Vezina type goalie, but that had a lot to do with my confidence in the defensive group in front of him. And then on the backside of that being like, well, the nights that they don't have it, I think Georgiev can make some unexpected saves. Those two things have kind of not been true. And sometimes at the same time, which is when the Avalanche have gotten into serious trouble. So I think if the Avs can get back to tight checking game in front of Georgiev. And like you mentioned, Georgiev can just make some of those saves that you need, which I do think, in fairness, Prosvetov came in the third and made a few of those saves that the Avalanche simply just needed in order to win the game. Ezra, what are your thoughts on the Georgiev situation? Obviously, we're not start Prosvetov yet, but how do you feel?
Well, I'll start with Prosvetov just because he's the alternative. I wrote in the grades last week that I felt like the goals he's giving up are not NHL goaltender quality goals to give up, and the saves that some of the saves that he's making are incredible. So he's got the talent to be amazing, and just needs more time to cook in the AHL, I think.
Okay.
Because it's the goals that he gives up are positioning problems and puck tracking problems, and those are things that you just learn over time. Rebound control is a big thing for him too. So I would not turn over the reins to him by any means. But at the same time, some of the goals last night for Georgiev were just, he was in position and he was almost competitive on them, but he wasn't competitive on them. And it's just an off night, I think. I don't think that's something that I expect to see from him all the time. But the goal I had the problem with last night wasn't the third goal. It ticked off a stick. You like him to be able to be big enough in cutting off that angle for that minor tick off a stick to not make a big difference. But it's a deflection. What are you going to do? But the first goal, I felt like he didn't even really, I don't know. It was like Kadri got a cross-ice pass, but he had time to square up to Kadri, and then he just whiffed on it. He didn't make the save. Yeah. And then the second goal was similar. It was a weird turnover, but Mangiapane got a pass out in the slot, and he didn't have much time to get square to him, but he kind of did get square to him, and then he just didn't make the save, which both of those are really tough saves. I'm not saying that that's like those are routine or anything, but yeah, like Bednar said, you want to get a save sometimes.
Two of those, yeah.
The Kadri one, I feel like that's the one that I'm like, you should have had that one. And it kind of started him on shaky footing for the whole that he never really got off of for the whole game. The Connor Zary goal, the smack in out of the air. I don't know how much you fault him for not stopping that shot, but I don't love that puck got
just
there.
Dangled there, yeah.
Yeah, he could have. I don't know. There's a lot of could haves with goaltending that are not fair. But just watching the replay, I'm like, oh, just stick your glove out
and snag that thing.
Yeah. I don't know. It's easier said than done, obviously.
Right.
I've never been a goalie. I won't claim that that's something that should be. But they're just when there's a bunch of goals where you're like, okay, those aren't quite good, then you got to get pulled. And Prosvetov was great. Didn't have to do too much, but what he had to do, he did.
Yeah, he made all of the necessary saves, I think, is the best way to put it.
There were two back-to-back rebound pad saves that I was like, okay, he's
at the very end.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned the Mangiapane goal against Georgiev, because later on in the third, Mangiapane got another incredible chance in the slot that he one time had to be at least an 80-mile-an-hour wrist shot that tried to go 5-hole, and Prosvetov stopped it, and you could tell he was like, "Oh God, did I actually stop this one?" He looked behind him a little bit, but he had it in there between the wickets. So I think he was good. And the major concern is you're not going to win a lot of games giving up 5 goals.
No.
And that's something that has to change both defensively and between the pipes. And speaking of change, Evan, what in the world happened midway through, or I guess kind of just into the third period? We heard word from McKinnon that they felt like they were outplaying Calgary despite being down 5-3. But what changed for you in that third period that led to Colorado's comeback?
I think there's a couple of things. Is Prosvetov coming in relief and doing a solid job. I think he did what he needed to do. But I also think too, right before the fourth goal of the game there was the penalty kill that they had. I forget who went off at this point. But the Avs killed off a penalty, didn't really give Calgary too much to look at there. And I think that kind of willed everybody up at least a little bit to an extent. And just the continual kind of dirty work is really what gets them going. And I think back now to that fourth goal that Colton scored that goal off of like a doinky rebound and
hit like 6 people and just landed right in front of him.
But that's where you need to be, right? You need to be at the front of the net. You need to be able to take your chances, right? Get pucks to the net and do that. The Avs have not done a very good job of that recently. They like to, of course, play their style of get the perfect shot, perfect pass, look pretty with it. But the third line that was back to what we've seen it before with Miles Wood and Ross Colton and Logan O'Connor, they are the ones that got that fourth goal. And
did
Colton
you call
had
that, Ezra,
night.
the O'Colton Wood line?
Logan O'Colton Wood.
Logan O'Colton Wood line. That's it. Like that third line was arguably the best line of the game. I should say Ross Colton more in particular, because the Stars were the Stars and they actually showed up. So that was nice to see too. But I think more importantly too, doing that dirty work in the middle six, the bottom six, also really helped, push the Stars to eventually go on Mikko right into to get down low himself and get the goal in. And then of course McKinnon's beautiful breakaway goal to finish it off.
Yeah, Jackie, what did you see on that breakaway goal for McKinnon, in terms of like how do they on the fly conceptualize such a passing play? Is that something you practice in terms of like playing it up the wall like that and then chipping it out? Because we saw McKinnon almost break out on a very similar play just a couple minutes before that. Is that like a set play for the Avalanche, you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely in the arsenal. They do a lot of the tips in the neutral zone just to get the puck in deep. So I think it's something they do that's not just for like that big home run play. It's just part of their, like, you get the puck out of the zone, the guy in the neutral zone moves it forward. Now, if someone's coming up the ice and on a great look like that, then it's like, it goes right to him. I remember in I think it was the Tampa game, because I was there. It was Mikko had a great pass in the neutral zone like that. I forget who it was to. Maybe it was to Johansson, because that's the game that he actually scored goals in. So I think it was a very similar play to that. So they've done it a few times. So I just think like the guy in the neutral zone can just tip it to get it deep. But hey, if there's a play to be made, let's make the play. And so, yeah, I think it's a very typical kind of Avs play, I would say.
Yeah, I say that it's a set play because I can't think of another reason why Nichushkin would just kind of be hanging out over there along the end boards on the blue line, close to the blue line, other than to just be used as a pillar for a chip pass. And so like he's going there, and I think I mentioned, it almost worked about a minute before that with the same exact players on the ice. They're probably like, this is just on the cusp of working. Let's keep rolling. Let's keep trying it. And finally, it panned out. So I guess practice does make perfect. So, it was probably top 10 passing play goals so far this season for the Avalanche, which, Evan, you mentioned the Avs like to play flashy, put on some really pretty goals from time to time. That was definitely one of them. So it's nice to see them working that back into their game. Hopefully we get to see the Avalanche do that again as we venture further on into the season, starting with the Sabres tomorrow. Let's do a little bit of a preview of that. Evan, who and what are you keying on heading into the Avalanche game against the Sabres?
I think I'll focus on the what here, okay. And that is still. I think I said it last week too. Is putting together a full 60 minutes, because we still have not seen that in, I don't know, at least a month or around then. I don't know. And it was nice to have a comeback win, but hearts were in throats a whole lot on Monday night. And I think a lot of Avs fans would be thankful to not have to deal with that coming into the holiday season. So if they can put together a full 60 minutes, not 20 like we saw last night, not 40, full 60, please.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because last night before the game, I tweeted from the Mile High Hockey account as kind of more a wish to the sky and the hockey gods. The Avalanche will not get scored on in the final 2 minutes of any period tonight. Well, that was not true. Somebody said to me, this is pretty much a jinx. And I said, can it really be a jinx if it's like the rule, if it happens all the time? I was trying to reverse jinx that thing, but it didn't work out that way. And I'm with you. The full 60 minutes is a huge thing for the Avalanche this season. I'm waiting for them to get a victory where it's like I can actually go to sleep with a period left and know that the Avalanche, when I wake up in the morning, will have either added to their lead or at least maintained it. That does not feel like the case so far this season. Maybe a few times. Ezra, is that a part of your keys to victory against the Sabres? And what else might you be keying on in that game?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's a major focus. I think we talked about it on last week's podcast too. Like those two things are crucial. Come play the whole game, and especially the last minute of every period. But I think what I'm keying on is containing the Sabres attack. I mean, we know Tage Thompson can be dangerous, and we know last time the Sabres and Avs matched up, it ended up a little bit lopsided in Buffalo's favor. So I just want to see a stronger defensive effort. As much as we talked about Georgiev just now giving up some goals that maybe we didn't love him giving up, ultimately they were all off of turnovers, and all the ones that we talked about specifically were off of turnovers. And I think we just have to avoid those kinds of mental breakdowns. Make sure pucks are getting cleanly out at the blue line, cleanly in at the other blue line, and go from there, because there's a lot of weird turnover play at both blue lines right now. Okay, I said containing their offense, but really what I meant by that was manage the blue line.
I was gonna say you started with holding them down, and then it turned into just figure it out back there. But hey, I'm with. I understand totally. That's kind of
okay. Let me defend myself. What I mean is, in order to contain their offense, we have to manage the puck better.
I love it. Well, because you don't want to give them more opportunities than they'll create for themselves for the start. I'm right there with you, buddy.
I also kind of just said like all the things people say on broadcast.
Yeah, that was like, if I send that clip to Altitude, you might have a job next week. My goodness, that was great. You sounded like Kyle Keith.
Riker, give me the job.
Yeah, exactly.
Side note, I was at the Avs and Flyers game on Saturday, and there was a guy in an Avs jersey and a gritty like helmet, and he had a poster that said Avs jobs ? Can I have a job ? So we just got to get you in that, Ezra.
There you go. Great. That's awesome.
I'm wearing my best gritty right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got your gritty beard going, dog. But I'm with you there. Like the Avs just have to do a better job of managing the puck, and that does affect both sides of the game, defensively and offensively. Obviously, you maintain possession offensively, and you don't give a talented team, talented opposition, more opportunities than they earn themselves. Jackie, I want to hear what you think of that. And then I also, as I classically give you two questions at once, tell me what the Avs have to do in their back-to-back scenario to set themselves up for success.
I think the answer is probably similar in both cases.
Okay.
I'm a broken record about the power play, but like getting one does not mean it's fixed. So we definitely need to continue working on the power play. And like Kale scored a really nice goal there, and he was also given the space to really walk into it. So that's not going to happen all that often. I liked when there was a mix of the first and the second units, and they actually got down low and attacked, and it was just chaos. And that's what they need to do so much more. Like, I hate when they're like on a regroup and it looks like somebody maybe can get in the zone with some numbers, and then they just stop and wait for everybody to show up. It's like, this is the NHL. You don't give goaltenders and defensemen time to set up shop. Like, you have to, if you have an open look at all, you have to attack. So I'd like to see that. As far as like limiting the turnovers, I think they're getting burned a lot on the high-low play. And I know that's a very signature part of their offense, but other teams watch tape too, and they continuously are getting picked off up high. And it's like, it's almost like a high risk, low reward, because it's hard to score from up there, and yet they're getting challenged and getting picked off, and then they're giving up breakaways and high danger chances of going the other way. So it's kind of like, why? It's not working right now. I'd like to see them focus on a little bit more down low play. It's where they scored several of their goals last night. I think that is going to be, maybe they keep better key to their success right now. So I'd like to see a little bit more tweaks in their offense. but we'll see. But as far as this weekend, I think it's going to be a really important back-to-back because one, going to Winnipeg, very close in the standings.
Yep.
So that's kind of like there's no must wins in December, but you'd really like to see a win there. If nothing else happens this week, I'd really like to see a win there because they lost to Winnipeg, whatever it was last week. They need to not lose that season series to them, especially if you care about things like winning the division.
Right.
So let's get in there and get a win. And then, as I talked last week about the brutal back-to-back, it's just so stupid to fly back from Canada just to go home and play a home game. And yeah, that Sharks game could be brutal as far as like engagement, mental outlook, whatever it is. Like, it might not be pretty. So I'd also like to see them just grind out a win there.
Mm-hmm.
But, if they beat Winnipeg, it kind of is what it is. So we'll see.
Well, that's kind of my approach, and that's why I framed the question this way, because it's like beating Winnipeg, just beating Winnipeg, if you are about winning both games, might not be enough. Because if you just beat Winnipeg and it goes, say, to overtime, or it's a really tight contest for 3 periods, something that's like a very physical affair, which it's likely to be given it's a division game, that San Jose game sets up exactly like the definition of a trap game. So if you take care of business against the Jets, you can come home and play San Jose. You can get some of the younger guys up from Vail to get a little bit more ice time, kind of take the edge off. But if you lose to Winnipeg, then that San Jose game at home feels a little bit more important. Obviously not in the context of like where it sits with the division and everything, but once again, we've talked about the Avalanche making it a point to not lose back-to-back games. You definitely don't want to lose back-to-back games with a loss to the bottom-feeding San Jose Sharks into that. But Evan, tell me, like, is there anything the Avalanche can take from their loss to Winnipeg and kind of implement knowledge-wise so that they're a little bit more set up than they were on my birthday when they got smoked?
Yeah, I know. This, so sorry that your birthday got spoiled.
It's okay.
On behalf of the Avalanche organization. No, but I don't know how much they are going to be able to take away from it. I think mostly just because the Avs weren't necessarily bad in that game. Just like they haven't necessarily been bad in many of these games recently. That's just kind of been at a 60-70% kind of pace that they've been at the last little while. So I would hope that they would look at some film and try to find something to take away from it. But at least off the top of my head, every game is different. It's not going to be the same played out kind of thing on a night to night basis. With that being said, though, I do agree with you that the game will probably look pretty similar, tight knit, division rivalry. Of course, there's a lot into it. So I think it kind of just tones back to what I said earlier about playing a full 60 minutes and putting in the effort. At least if they put in the effort, they should at least get a point out of that game. And honestly, I'm fine with that if they get a point. Now, if they get a point after blowing a 4-1 lead, maybe not so much. But I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
I hear you. I think when you say they didn't play too bad, you're correct. I think overall, but there were a few particular moments inside that game, a la Devon Taves' goof at the very end of, I think, the second or first period, where he had three or four safe plays that he could have made, and instead he tried to force a pass up the boards. Ezra, what are your thoughts? Is there anything that you think the Avs can take from their loss to Winnipeg and implement?
Well, I mean, I think it kind of goes to what we've already been talking about, where it is, be smart that last minute of the game, be safe at your blue line, be smart at the other blue line. I don't know that there's anything more specific than just generally like the plays that need to be made. I think, Yeah, I don't have a better answer than that. Sorry.
I think too. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if you don't have anything to say, then don't say it. This isn't altitude. But if you really look at the if you really look at the situation with the Winnipeg Jets, at the end of the day, does it feel like they're a better team than the Colorado Avalanche? I don't know. I think stylistically they pose a good threat and they're a tough out. But I think the Avalanche on a whole basis are a better team. And I think the Jets actually just lost Kyle Connor for 6 to 8 weeks as well. So I think that that will play a role in this in the future for the Jets. Obviously, 6 to 8 weeks is a long time kind of in the NHL. So, we'll see how that affects them scoring wise. I think if the key for me for this Avalanche team is getting ahead. And if you can play with the lead, I think that bodes well for the Avalanche stylistically. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I don't want the Avalanche to be playing from behind. If they can get ahead, I think that they have a chance in any game. But speaking of having a chance in any game, that's what we do with our bold predictions. They all have a chance, but they are all wildly outrageous guesses. And as such, let's recap last week and let's do it quickly because, why spend time on a bunch of wrong answers? Jackie, your bold prediction was Mikko would have a hat trick before our next show. He didn't have a hat trick, but he had lots of points.
At least he scored a goal.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to buzzer you. I hate doing that. But Ezra's bold prediction last week was that Sam Alinsky would outscore Devon Toews. Did that happen? I don't think that happened.
I think it might have. I think it might be 2 to 1.
It might have.
It might have.
It might have been.
I'm trying to find
Let's
it
go look.
now.
Are we uncovering?
Because I know they both got an assist on the same goal.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think Toews scored much
Nathan
this
McKinnon's
week.
goal in
So.
Winnipeg.
So what date was our last episode?
The Flyers game.
Our last show
Toews
was
got
on
an assist
Wednesday,
in the Flyers
wasn't it?
game, and then Malinsky.
Yeah.
It was before the Jets game.
So Malinsky's had 2 points since Winnipeg.
Malinsky got one. And so has Toews. It's 2 to 2.
2 to 2.
Wow.
That was real
Honestly,
close.
though, like Sam Malinsky and Devon Toews, who should have more points in a week, it should be Devon Toews. So I'm gonna give you that one. Like that's if I could half ding it, I would half ding it, but I think you get a full ding there. My bold prediction was that
half dinger. That's what I get.
Hey, they add up.
That's your new nickname. My bold prediction was that somebody would have a Gordie Howe hat trick. That didn't happen. We have a bunch of softies on our team, and nobody even fought last week. I'm pretty mad about it. I'm just kidding. I don't actually care. But Louis, you said, and funny enough, when I wrote this on Twitter the first time, all I said was, Sam Alinsky will have his first NHL this week. So I didn't quite read the tweet before I sent it out. Evan quickly caught it. But you had that he would have his first goal. He didn't, but he played pretty well, I would say.
He was close.
Yeah.
He was close.
So
that would have made a difference in both mine and Ezra's.
Exactly. One goal would have been 2 dings.
There.
And we'd have been, hey, but you know what? There. We were 0 for 4 this week, but it happens. We have the best thing, though, is that we have one of these every week, and every week we get another chance.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I call that bold talk.
All right, Mr. Managing Editor, Mr. Bold Predictor, Evan, what is your bold prediction this week? And I will read it before I send it.
Yeah, I've been waiting to say this one because December always seems to be a streaky month for the Avalanche. They love to go, for the last few seasons now, usually on a winless streak. It's happened already a couple of times this month where they've gone a game or two without a win. And then last night they pulled it out a victory, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's only going to help them. The next 3 games, they go undefeated, including that back-to-back. I'm pretty confident about that back-to-back in particular. If they beat Winnipeg, that's huge, and I think they should beat San Jose the night afterwards, despite the travels.
Nice. I love it. Avs will go 3-0 in their next 3 games. Mr. Evan. All right, you know what? I'm here for it. That's 6 points, baby. That's 6 points. And we're just about just past a quarter of the way through the season. So we're running out of opportunities to score points, not quickly, but it's happening before our eyes. I like that one, Evan. I think you're right. If they beat Winnipeg, hopefully they have enough legs within them to knock off the San Jose Sharks as well, who seem to be kind of in that limbo spot where they've got some talented guys that they might need to offhand. Just a little hint there. But Ezra, what is your bold prediction?
Yeah, I like the 3 wins. I agree with that. I think I'm gonna say, yeah, that happens. I agree. And then I think Mikko Rantanen leads the team in scoring for the week.
Mikko
goals.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, both.
And do you think it's because he's so pissed off still?
Angry Moose is wild. Angry Moose is on a rampage. That's what I think is going to happen.
Well, we saw Mikko being mean, and we saw McKinnon being funny in the post game. So that bodes really well for the Avalanche going forward, because anytime we can get McKinnon to not think about the upcoming plate of celery, we should be stoked. He was hilarious with Peter Baugh last night. Peter asked him, "What did you see on that breakaway?" And he said, "Low blocker. What did you think I see, Pete? I'm not that bad. Jesus."
I'd be like, I can't see from the press box.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. So, Ezra, your bold prediction is that Mikko Rantanen will lead the Avalanche in points scored this week.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that a lot. He's got a little bit of a fire lit underneath him. Jackie, what's your bold prediction this week?
Okay, well, I'm going to say that I still haven't gotten my hat trick. I'm disappointed, but we can't always predict scoring. So I'm going to go take it a little the other direction.
Okay.
I kind of feel like, and I will kind of hate to be right, but as good as he's played and as much as we liked him, I think Malinsky's going back to the Eagles before Christmas.
Okay. Sam Malinsky.
He was pretty bad last night.
Yeah.
That's definitely analytic. Yeah. You saw it in the analytics.
The analytics for him have been brutal. I like what I'm seeing eye test wise, but the analytics have been brutal.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
He's promising for sure, but I think when people are seeing him playing over Jones, kind of feel like he won that battle, and they can't keep scratching Jones. Like, I think it's obvious because they don't want to waive Jones, which I think is the right call. I wouldn't want to try it either. They can't really afford to lose him if somebody takes him. So I think that they kind of did this to give Malinsky a look to see his third pair viability. And I think he's shown he is viable there. But yeah, I think he does have a little bit of things to work on. And plus the roster freeze and everything. They're not going to want to scratch Jones forever. And he's just going to get caught in the rules.
Yeah, like in just trying to balance the roster and not give up something you don't have to. That totally makes sense to me. Plus, I honestly, I'm right there with you. I think Jones, in terms of this specific season, is probably going to be the one they utilize more. Obviously, over the long run, you want to see Malinsky be a part of this franchise into the future. But I think like this season in particular, Caleb Jones will suffice at that 6 and 7D going forward. So I'm with you there. My bold prediction is going to kind of go along Jackie's keys to victory. And I'm going to say that the Avalanche find those keys where they left them still in the lock, like I always do. And they will have, let's see, how do I want to put this? I'll just say that the Avs will have at least 4 successful power plays this week.
Ooh, that's pretty high.
You just mean score 4 power play goals, I guess.
Yeah. See, that's why I said, how do I want to put this? I should have asked him.
Was there any other way to have a successful power play? I'm just
That's true. That's true.
Hey, they are called bold predictions for a reason, folks.
Jackie, can you just follow me around at work and like I whisper in your ear what I want to say, and then you be like, "This is how you want to say that, Adrian." So yeah.
But hey, I mean, if you're leaving yourself like a little loophole here, I mean, that could work too.
You're a lawyer. Dang, how'd you figure me out that fast? So Avs will score 4 power play goals between now and our next episode, look, there's another little loophole that I can throw in.
Okay, I like it too. I would love to see 4 power play goals.
Oh, absolutely.
The reason I say that is because something's got to flip and give. I just feel like the Avs power play is just way too talented to be having these sort of issues. I don't know if it's like something strategically that they need to address in terms of their approach, or if it's just been puck luck, because it kind of feels like a pretty hefty dose of both. So I hope the Avalanche can figure that out. And so like we sometimes say, this is a bold hope as well as a bold prediction. So, well, I think that does it for us here at the Mile High Hockey Lab. We've gotten our bold predictions out of the way. We made sure that everyone knows that Mikko Rantanen is pissed off and that Nathan MacKinnon is funny. And we rehashed the Avalanche comeback victory over the Calgary Flames. Not to mention, we celebrated the very, very loved Erik Johnson, the Condor, who will make his return to Ball Arena tomorrow night. Be on the lookout on milehighhockey.com. I got a fun little article coming out about EJ, and we will preview the game as usual and have a live thread for everyone to follow. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow Avalanche fans. These episodes are available the following day on Spotify, so head over there if you need something to listen to on your ride to Ball Arena. We love you, folks. From us to you at Mile High Hockey, Merry Christmas and have a good night.
Welcome to
Mile High Hockey Lab.
Mile High Hockey Lab.